Identity V's UI is cluttered. It looks outdated, even for the time that it was released back in 2018. Does NetEase have any plans of changing and optimizing the in-match appearance of the game? I'm not so sure, so I took it upon myself to do what IDV devs haven't done for around 4 years. UI stands for User Interface, and is the menu or the on-screen visuals for your abilities, your health status, your indicators, and all that sort of stuff that you have in a video game. Something that is separate from the world that the character you are playing as would be able to see, but lets you, the player, know the status of your character and so forth. In Identity V, that will be your collection of ability cooldowns, your persona web effects, the survivors in the match, their health state, and so on. This here is Identity V's current UI. If you've played the game for a while, it will feel natural to look at it, but if you take a step back and imagine what it would look like without all of those UI things, you realize just how cluttered and messy all of the things are. Why is there massive text on the screen telling you how many cipher machines are left? That is what I decided to change, among other things of course. First, let's change the layout from the bottom right. If you are a mobile player, the first thing that you will notice is probably that I changed the icon for the changing trait, that is trump card. This change I made was more of a logical one than an aesthetic one. Why is there an icon that looks nothing like trump card, even though this is the trump card effect, when the trump card logo easily explains what will happen if you press it? So I changed the weird double arrow things into the trump card logo to make it easier for newer players to recognize where they can change their trait. And if they've paid even a little bit of attention to what the trump card symbol looks like, they'll be able to recognize it quickly if they are looking for where they can use that ability in game. For mobile players, this may not be an obvious change, but I moved the weapon attack icon from the bottom left to the bottom right. This is because it was randomly there on the left side for no reason on PC. So why put it all the way on the left, NetEase? It just doesn't make any sense. I also organized the abilities a little better on PC to make them a little bit more aesthetically pleasing and a little bit more organized. But I think that mobile players will have their layout more or less the same, as they need to touch those abilities and PC players just need to be able to see key bindings. I also added a red glow to the weapon icon when detention is active. Let's move on to the bottom left. Normally there is nothing here at all, on PC at least. On mobile this does make some sense, as this is where your movement controls are. But on PC that doesn't make any sense at all because there is nothing there, it's just an empty space technically. Especially as the game has evolved to have lots of verticality on it, with two-story buildings being very common. Having a lot of items on the top of your screen just doesn't make any sense anymore and is really not desirable, as it can block your view of seeing if survivors are at the top, and if you have any type of upwards facing camera ability, you do want to be able to see what you're aiming at. So on PC, I've moved all of the survivor icons and the health status items to the bottom left. On mobile, I would have it more towards the center middle at the bottom. This makes the information easy to see, also doesn't block your vision at all, as you don't usually have to look straight down at the floor or at your character's legs. I also changed the icons to be a stylized version of the survivors, so it is easier to see which survivors are which at a glance. I made the icons for status smaller but just as easily recognizable, but letting survivors be at the forefront of the design. And I also changed up the colors slightly to be brighter and more colorful. I also changed the colors up to make it easier to differentiate the colors between being downed and being on a rocket chair. The icons such as Seer's Owl, perfume abilities, all of that lot would all be applied in the same way they are right now. I removed the massive text in the top middle. Yes, finally. That made me really happy to do. We don't need all of that text to tell us something that even beginners can understand with ease. Here I just made a simple cipher machine symbol and put the number of remaining cipher machines. Simple but effective. And I just put it down at the bottom left. On mobile, I would put it just below the minimap, so more or less where it is on PC, but a little bit higher. Next to it, I changed the dungeon has been revealed text that as a beginner I had no clue what that even meant at all, and made it a symbol for dungeon with 3 different stages: hidden with the eye crossed out, visible when the eye is not crossed out, and open when the dungeon is open. Beginners often don't know what the dungeon is, but once you realize that there is a dungeon, you'll be able to recognize those symbols really quickly. On PC, I put it next to the cipher machine symbol, and on mobile, I would put it just below the cipher machine count. around. Let's talk about the top right. As I said, I want to keep the top as clean and as clear as possible. To achieve this, I have made the presence bar vertical instead of horizontal. It also is going to match the themes of hunters being red, similar to, you know, for example, detention. I removed the text as it isn't necessary to know what that bar is called, and this time it actually feels like the bar is slowly filling as you hit survivors, because it looks like it's actually a gauge bar instead of just being a line at the top of the screen that you don't really pay attention to as a beginner. I even thought that maybe a cool addition would be that once you get to full presence, the bar would just completely disappear, with a cool animation of course. On mobile, you would just shorten the bar a little bit, make it a little bit smaller just so there's more space for all of your ability buttons. Oh, and I also changed the emote button too. Why is it currently a Jack Skellington button? I never really understood that, and I was a bit confused when I first started playing the game. Instead, I changed it to the dancing emote. This makes it more obvious as to what it does, and it makes it more obvious for new players that have played other games before that they just associate that being an emote button. As Tinnitus is now a base kit for hunters, and beginners barely even know how Tinnitus even works, and most people still thinking it works with auditory warnings with like a sound whenever there's a survivor near you, that it doesn't, just to clarify, why not change it up completely? I decided to add a survivor heart, that is the heart that they get when they have terror radius if you're a survivor player. I put this at the top right of the screen so that it's not in the way, but it's there and it will indicate to the hunter that there's somebody near. This will easily help a hunter know when there is a survivor near them, and it will also help beginner hunters quickly associate that heartbeat symbol with the experience they've probably already had with survivor, meaning that they know what that means. I went for the same color scheme as the survivor heart thing. The color could be changed to match the other ones, maybe just making it a white or a grey would be quite cool too. This is just my initial idea. I am really curious to see if you guys have a better idea of how to add tinnitus into the game and make it less intrusive but more obvious to beginner players. Now, if you're wondering what the difference is between each graphical setting in Identity V, then you should click this video here and see what the difference is between performance mode and low mode. It's actually pretty interesting.